Welcome everyone to our Alumni Week, What Will Your Legacy Be seminar. Thank you for joining us in this virtual format. It's a new format for us, like most things these days. Thank you as well for joining me in my home office. I realize it's a little bland in the background, but you know what, we've moved recently, so forgive me, I haven't quite got everything set up. I'm also realizing I tried to represent the U of A with my U of A hoodie, but it's being cut off from the video, so kind of missed the boat on that one, but I think we're good to get started. I actually also want to understand we have alumni joining us today from all over the world, so whether you're from Edmonton, Alberta, or logging on from the UK, we're thrilled to host you. I also want to acknowledge a special guest in our virtual audience. So hello to Tyler Hansen, who's the new Alumni Association President-elect. Welcome, Tyler, and congrats on your new role. As well, the University of Alberta respectfully acknowledges that we are situated on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of the First Nations and Métis people. So my name is Julian Solberg. I work at the U of A in what's called the Office of Individual Giving. So as opposed to being based solely in a faculty, I actually work in a central office, and I get to collaborate in partnership with all 18 of our faculties across campus. Later in this session, you will hear from Wanda Fawcett from Bishop Mackenzie LLP, who will share some of her experiences on working with clients on their estate planning and speak to some questions that you maybe should be asking your own lawyer or legal advisor. Just a quick housekeeping note. Thank you again for joining us in this virtual format. Maybe we're all a little used to this new normal, the way of doing things. But when it comes to questions, you're welcome to use the Q&A box at the bottom, and we will look to get to all the questions that we can at the end of the seminar today. So to start off, and the reason I'm here today, is to really encourage you all to give some thought on what you may want to accomplish with your own personal legacy. I know the term legacy can mean different things to different people. So to give it some context, what I'm referring to as legacy is the way of maybe telling your own personal story. Everyone has their own personal story to share. I mean, it involves our upbringing, our families, our careers, all of our adventures and experiences we've had. So I'm hoping as well after today's seminar, I'm going to share some real life examples of how others have told their stories via the process of combining philanthropy and estate planning, and the resulting impact that could have on the U of A and our community. So the power of philanthropy. In my role here at the university, I have the honor of being able to help our alumni and donors achieve their own personal philanthropic goals through the process of estate planning and philanthropy. Now that's the technical definition of what I do, but I'm actually going to share a quick video with you that gives you maybe a better representation of what I'm saying. This video is a story of a truly remarkable lady that I've gotten to know over the past few years. Please play the video.
When I was a kid, believe me, I had a difficult childhood. And my teachers and my coaches, they worked with me to give me a feeling of confidence and a sensation of who I was. And one of my teachers said to me, you can do the same for somebody else. That's what it's about, paying it back.
I was in the basement studying, and I got an email, and it basically just said, hey, you won Wendy's bursary. And when I saw it, I was like, holy cow, like, we got something, like, oh, like, this is awesome. There's so many opportunities to help people that have impairments to do more.
If I can help some other student or students to do the same thing, to stay in school, to get their degree, to go on and hopefully feel the same way about perhaps giving back to one or many other people, to say thank you for what I've received. And it makes me feel that I've done something worthwhile.
I feel truly blessed to have gotten to know Wendy over the years. It warms my heart that she was open to sharing her story with us, a story that wasn't completely captured in that video, but I know, as we could tell, she overcame many obstacles in her life, constantly broke down barriers, and went on to reach the very top of her field. Wendy knew that everything she accomplished wasn't possible through her own sole efforts. She referenced specifically to some of the help she received along the way, and it was clear through her emotional response of gratitude just how much she valued that support. For Wendy, the U of A ended up being the right fit for her to create a lasting legacy. And as she said in the video, it allowed her to pay it back and help out future generations of U of A students and some of those that share the similar background to herself. So Wendy established a bursary here on campus that's going to support future students in financial need, and she's added to it through a gift in her will. This will make a lasting impact for future U of A students in perpetuity. And with impact, so I understand when I say philanthropy or philanthropist, that sounds like a big word, and it's going to mean different things to everybody. But for me personally, when I say philanthropy or think of philanthropists, I think of all the alumni and donors that I've gotten to work with over the years, like Wendy, who in their own way were able to make a positive impact to the causes that were important to their life. I have a few other quick stories I want to share with you about amazing people I've been able to work with. Forgive me, I do want to read this a little bit. In our newsletter recently, we shared a story about a woman who has a lifelong love of books. It started when she was a young girl in Saskatchewan, and her grandma gave her a book as a gift. This was a big deal for Emma, as her family lived on a farm and the nearest bookstore was 100 kilometers away. Emma continued her passion of books throughout her life, as a student earning an arts degree from the U of A, and later as she researched her family history in libraries all over North America. Emma wanted to ensure that there are opportunities for others to pursue their love of books as well, and is establishing a bursary for library students at the U of A. She is funding this bursary through a gift in her will, a future gift that will help Masters of Library Information Studies program become more accessible for deserving students. Emma's gift to the U of A will ensure that curious people like her, when they visit a library in the future, there'll be a skilled librarian there to help them follow their curiosity. As well, I know a mother and daughter team who share a passion for the arts. Maya and Seka are both U of A graduates. Maya earned a degree in chemical engineering and is also a classically trained pianist. She believes that her musical background helped her develop a successful engineering career, as it helped her learn and develop her discipline, her focus, her determination, patience, and memory. Maya's mom studied microbiology in her home of Croatia. Shortly after moving to Canada in 1955, she thought something was missing, and that something was art. So at age 40, she set out to earn a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the U of A, and when people asked her why she wanted another degree, Seka would just reply, "Life begins at 40 and I have to fulfill my passion." Both Maya and Seka have included gifts to the U of A in their wills, and they've chosen to support the Department of Art and Design, as well as the Department of Music, for student support, scholarships, and bursaries. And I love what Seka has to say about these gifts. Art is such an important part of our culture. We want to set an example for our younger generations and give them an opportunity to make a difference in society. Living is a process of learning, and no matter what happens in life, no one can take away what's in your head and in your heart. The last story I'm going to share is about Rosemary. Rosemary graduated from the U of A in the 50s. She earned 2 degrees, an arts degree and an education degree. She went on to earn a master's degree in musical education in the USA, and then came back to Edmonton and taught in the Edmonton Public Schools. She also led the children's choir in her church, as she had such a passion for music. Our team always loved chatting with Rosemary and hearing her talk about the importance of helping young people, how much she believed in the value of a good education, and she gave regularly in support of scholarships and bursaries. And she's also included a gift to the U of A in her will. Rosemary did pass away recently, and the gift in her will is supporting medical research as well as scholarships in medicine and music. Afterwards, Kathy from our team has had the pleasure of connecting with Rosemary's niece. They had a lovely chat about Rosemary and the remarkable life she had, which included dinner with the Queen Mother, and just about how beautiful life is, that women are creating opportunities for life-changing research and life-changing educational experiences. And all of these are for people that she'll never have the opportunity to meet. Now, Kathy is working with Rosemary's niece to write a brief biography about who Rosemary was and why these things are important to her and why she really wanted to help others. We will share this story with students who will receive her scholarship every year. This biography will not only tell students why Rosemary wanted to help them, but will teach these students about philanthropy and what a legacy Rosemary is leaving. So for these stories I shared, the situation was right for them to incorporate philanthropy into their own story. Some people make these gifts in partnership with a spouse, some are not. Some are making it in connection with their children, some are not. Some are doing this in memory of a loved one, and some are not. There's really no right or wrong way to leave a gift or to make a lasting legacy. Everyone finds their own way to be a philanthropist, and everyone's path is unique. And while I know that many of these people won't consider themselves philanthropists, I truly think they are. And I actually want to share another video of a couple's story that led their decision as well to combine philanthropy as part of their legacy.
In 2009, when my brother had just turned 61, he died of a heart attack. Other than the diabetes, he'd been in apparently good health. It was the feeling that this is what could happen to our son, Colin, also.
We have strong incentive to continue to hope for that cure.
We need the best people and more of the best people to work in diabetes research. The gift from Val and Morley Blanche allows us to recruit the best trainees.
So when it comes to the impact that can be made at specifically the U of A, when people give to the university, they become a part of our community whose investment in our talented students and researchers go beyond campus and really touch the lives of countless others. These donors are helping shape the futures, give hope. They're easing struggles, they're breaking down barriers, they're solving problems, and they're strengthening our community and even saving lives. Now, I do want to touch a little bit on the concept of estate planning. So briefly, I mean, as some of you may or not know, a gift in your will may be coined a bequest, the most common term for charitable estate planning. So there's some other terms you may have heard of, such as gifts of life insurance, RRSPs, securities or stocks. I want to say that our office has materials on all of these topics, and we'd be happy to provide them to you upon request. Even specifically an example, we could create an illustration that could show all these different ways of giving and the potential tax-related benefits to your estate for making a gift. And now today, I don't want to run through the nuts and bolts of all these types of ways to give, but we're happy to connect with you afterwards. We will be distributing a survey following this seminar where you could indicate, I would like to follow up on X kind of thing. And we'll be happy to follow up with you then. There is one concept I wanted to speak to everyone today on. It's what we coin, or we call social capital. And by social capital, I'm referring to the support that we all give back to the government in the form of taxes. Later on, our guest speaker, Wanda, will dive into this a little deeper, but I just want to say a quick few things. When it comes to your estate, for most individuals, it's going to be the largest tax bill that you'll ever owe. And by making a charitable gift through your estate plans, you're actually making a gift that it's going to enable you to kind of direct that social capital to an area that's important to you, or a cause that's important to you. And in turn, your estate will receive the tax credits that will offset some, or even in some cases, all of the tax owing to your estate. I know taxes and estate planning talk maybe not the most riveting topic to go through, which is why I want to move a little bit closer to hearing from our guest speaker today. But I do want to share one last thing, some final thoughts. Like all of you, myself, my colleagues, we have our own priorities in life. We need to make sure that our loved ones, our family are taken care of, maybe a specific cause important to us is supported, and we all completely respect and understand that everyone has to do what's right for themselves. Your estate represents your entire life's work. It's all your savings, your hard work, a lifetime of stories and memories, and it all shaped us to become the people we are. To me, that is why a gift from an estate is just so meaningful. Now, I do want to leave you with one last video, and to me, this really captures when we title our event and ask somebody, what will your legacy be?
Hello, my name is Neil Siemens. I was born on a farm, actually, just outside of a small community in southern Manitoba. The name of the town is Plum Coulee. My mother passed away in 1941 when I was 8 years old. My dad, unfortunately, fell apart at that point in his life, and he joined the military, and all 5 of us children wound up being wards of the government. I lived in the foster home until I was 15. I subsequently was taken in by a minister and his wife, a German minister and his wife. It was a dreadful place, to be honest with you, and I don't have any fond memories of it whatsoever.
My name is Kaylin Burns. I'm a first-year student at the University of Alberta, taking biology. Growing up was tough, certainly at some times. I basically was raised by my mom, and by my mom alone. There were often many times where, because she had not very stable circumstances, she struggled really to pay rent or to get groceries. My mom used my dream of becoming a doctor as motivation for me to want to go to university.
I hate to tell you this, but I grew up thinking I was stupid. Seriously, I really thought that I had absolutely zero academic ability. It wasn't until I got into the military and, of course, in the Air Force, and of course there was some training involved in some academics. I found that I could do quite well if I exerted myself even a little bit. And that made me realize that I did have some potential. And it was a motivating factor to do something significant, in life, leave a mark.
Tuition and living expenses for about 4 years would be 60 grand, and it's overwhelming. That's an overwhelming amount of money. I was very happy. I'm the first person in my family who's gone to university. I think it's a great accomplishment, and I honestly want to be a bit of a role model too to my sister. If I could tell Neil anything, it'd be that I'm so grateful. I don't even know how to put that into words. It's relieving, and I'm very happy, and I'm very proud, and him making that donation has gone a long way for me right now.
We met in 1971. We started dating in 1972. We got married in 1977 and have had a fantastic marriage. She unfortunately became ill in 2008 when she started having memory issues and memory problems, and diagnosed her, and then she had the onset of dementia, if you will. We are on our way to visit my wife at the home where she's living at this point in time.
That she would do it, good thing.
She never went to university. She didn't get a lot of recognition for what she tried to do or what she did. And this is just an attempt on my part to give her a little bit. What would I like to say to the students that received the scholarships? I don't really have a message. I don't want them to feel as if they're accepting charity. That would be the last thought on my mind. And I would just like to enjoy their company over a lunch or a coffee even. And an hour with them would be just fantastic.
Hello, Mr. Siemens. My name's Kaylin Burns.
Hi, Karen. Nice to meet you.
I got your scholarship this year. I'm really excited to finally meet you.
Thank you. I'm excited to meet you as well. This is really neat.
This year, both of my parents fell sick, so it meant a lot to be able to get some aid.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
So I know it usually means a lot to people, but in particular, it meant a lot. So.
Well, that's very nice. And thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it. I really and truly feel the need to give back to society. I want to leave this planet without anybody saying, gee whiz, I'm glad that guy's gone.
So thank you. Thank you. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That's enough for me. I hope a bit of what I had to say was helpful to you all. So again, thank you for your time. Now I would like to move on to welcoming our guest presenter today, Wanda Fawcett. Let me welcome Wanda. It's a pleasure to introduce you as our special guest. Wanda, who has her BA and LLB from the U of A, is an associate at Bishop Mackenzie. Her practice focuses on a full range of legal issues pertaining to wills, estates, guardianships, and trusteeships. These matters include creating wills, personal directives, powers of attorney, acting as executors, establishing adult guardianship and trustees, and assisting family with special needs children in their planning. Wanda is a trust estate practitioner as designated by the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners of Canada. Her warmth and empathy are appreciated by her clients engaged in sometimes emotional task of writing wills and devising guardianships. Wanda, welcome. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Jillian. Wow, those were amazing videos. I was very emotional. I'm delighted to be asked to participate. Happy homecoming, everyone. Julian assured me if I agreed to do this that I could talk about myself. I could talk and preach a little bit about giving and talk about estate planning, all things that I love to do. As Julian said, I'm actually I'm raised and born and raised in Edmonton. I've worked at Bishop Mackenzie for 28 years, and in that time, I have drafted a lot of wills. I have met a lot of people, wonderful people. I've dealt with a lot of estates and a lot of families. And so I hope I can inspire a few people in my talk and get you thinking about taking that first step towards your estate plan. As Julian said, I attended the U of A for my undergrad in arts and my faculty. I went to Faculty of Law for my law degree. I just want to mention too another connection. My mom was a teacher, but she went back to the U of A in the 70s and got her home economic degree. And my daughter is now attending third year Faculty of Art in the Faculty of Arts, doing her honors history. And my son's in grade 12, and I fully expect him to be going to the U of A. We've been talking about that. I want to start by saying I believe that I had the opportunities I did because my parents worked hard and I worked hard, but also because there were people who had been generous previously and people who gave back to help create the community and city and that I grew up in. And I truly believe that. So moving on to the stuff everyone likes to hear about is what I do and how do I talk to clients about wills and estates planning. So normally I have a first meeting with them, and in that meeting I usually start by saying, what keeps you up at night when you start thinking about your estate? Is it tax? Is it family fighting? Is it the cost of doing a will? Is it that you're going to die because you start thinking about your will? Then I tell them and I assure them that they're not going to die instantly if they start doing their will. I assure them that there are no right or wrong answers when you are deciding what to do with your estate. But it is wrong, I believe, to do nothing at all. I think you need to address and be honest about your family and your family dynamics, who your family is, and that can be really hard for families. First And foremost, I think the most important decision that someone's going to have to make about their will is who is the executor going to be? Who is going to be the personal representative? Who is going to be the person in charge? This is going to guide what happens when you're gone. And that is a really important decision to make. I think in acknowledging your death by doing a will, you're not going to make it happen at that moment, because newsflash, we're all going to die. And as an estate lawyer who's been practicing for so many years, I can make a few jokes about that. But what is your legacy going to be? Is it going to be no will? Is it going to be an outdated will? Is it going to be a poorly planned will? Or is it going to be a well-planned, thought-out will? And if you are in a blended family, I think estate planning just takes it up a notch in terms of how important that is when you are in a blended family. I say to my clients, you know, and when I do seminars, and I've done a gazillion seminars, and this is my first web seminar, by the way. So if my hands start waving or I move around too much, it's because I'm used to like seeing people and talking. But anyhow, you've invested a whole bunch of time and energy and effort, physical energy, mental energy in creating your estate, and also in creating your family and raising your children. So why wouldn't you put that same amount of energy into planning your estate and deciding how to distribute it after you're gone? So you've decided to do the will. So where do you go? You need to know what your assets are. So make a list, make a complete list. When I talk to my clients, I fill out a questionnaire. I don't need to know all your bank account numbers, but I need to know what you own, how much, and understanding the ownership of those assets. I think it's important that you know your tax liability. A lot of people say, well, I don't really have anything, but you need to understand that when you die, what the tax liability will be, or when the last of you and your spouse to die. And it's usually the big tax hit comes on the death of the survivor spouse. And I like to encourage people to think about the fact that they have more to give from their estate than they actually think that they do. I recently read an article about a gentleman named Chuck Feeney. Chuck Feeney gave away $8 billion. He's 89 years old, and I know we all don't have $8 billion, but the amazing thing about Chuck Feeney is that he gave it all away. He started the Giving While Living program. I want to just read a quote that Chuck Feeney said in the article, because I thought that it really expresses how I feel too. Chuck Feeney said, people must define themselves or feel a responsibility to use some of their assets to improve the lives of their fellow humans, or else create intractable problems for future generations. Chuck Feeney's mother was known for her compassion and her charity, and she obviously passed that on to him. That's what I want to teach my two children. And what an amazing legacy for a mom to have her son do that. I also recently read an interview by Gloria Steinem in the New York Times, where she was interviewed and she was asked about how she encourages or talks to people about giving to her cause. And she said that she says to people that it's way more satisfying to see money making change for the better than numbers adding up in the bank. She says she asked people, why do you want to die with money? And if you do, ask yourself why. She encouraged people to spend for good creative things before they die. And she briefly talked about how an inheritance some kind can be more of a burden to children. And I have seen that in my practice, where I had a client say to me one time, making the money was the easy part, Wanda, but deciding if I should give it to my children or how much, that's really hard, because I've already seen kind of what our wealth has done in their lives. So now I've told a few stories, and I get to get personal, because Julian promised that I could talk about myself a bit. So I want to talk about what my husband and I have done with our estate planning. We give to charity, yes, while we are alive. But one thing that we have done during our lives, while we are alive, we have set up an endowment fund at the Edmonton Community Foundation in the name of my husband's mother to honor her. The income from the fund goes every year to the Edmonton Food Bank. And we did this because my husband's mother was one of the founding members of the food bank. I believe it's the Gleaners Society, they originally called it, and spent close to 40 years being involved at the food bank as the chair, as on the board of directors, volunteering and donating. And we wanted to honor her kindness and her example and the unjudgmental way that she donated her time to that charity. So in our wills, though, so that's something we've done, and it's an it's a living gift. We've set it up now. It's established. It's fully funded, and the money has been going to the food bank. In our will, so on the death of the survivor, of my husband and I, we have in our will, before any money goes to our children, created an endowment fund again at the Edmonton Community Foundation that will fund various charities. We couldn't narrow down our charities, so we've left that to the Community Foundation, and we've given them just kind of a framework of giving of specific areas that we want to help, and we're going to leave it to them to decide. We've also given a gift to the Faculty of Arts at the University of Alberta to create an endowment fund where half of the income will go to bursaries, like Neil has done. So it's based on financial need, not scholarships or marks. And half of the money will go, the income from the fund will go directly to the Faculty of Arts for them to decide where the need is great. Because again, we felt that the Faculty of Arts, I feel sometimes is kind of the forgotten faculty. And so we also wanted them to have a bit of money if, you know, they needed to focus on something. My husband also went to the faculty, graduated from the Faculty of Arts. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of my connection to the university, so hopefully he's not watching. And he also graduated from the Faculty of Law. And then also in our wills, we're going to put further money into the fund that we created to honor my husband's mother. So I want to leave for my children the legacy of kindness and giving, and not an accumulation of wealth and numbers in a bank account. They still get a little bit. And, you know, if they don't end up being kind and charitable, then at least I've taken away some of their inheritance to do some goodness and some kindness. So after I got my husband and I sorted, then I turned to my parents. And my parents came from rural Alberta. They both have a farming background, and they moved to Edmonton when they got married in the early 60s. And they always had wills, but basic wills. And so about 2 years ago, I started talking to them about the charitable giving. And we focus more on that. And it's been a long haul. And they didn't even have to pay for a lawyer to help them all of this because their daughters. And you know, and also to as a confession, I could never get my grandfather to do a will. I think the idea of his own death, he could not face. And again, he had a granddaughter who was a lawyer who would have done everything for him for free, but he couldn't. And so it's hard. It's really hard to face these things. The idea, like for my mom and dad, the idea that they had money or that they should give money to anyone other than to their children was absolutely foreign to them. They had always given, like my mom has always given money to charities here and there, but in their wills, this was absolutely foreign to them that an inheritance would go anywhere other than to your children. So we talked about the tax. We talked about the tax that would be payable on the death of the survivor of them. And we got an accountant. And the accountant actually put it into a letter so that they could see it black and white as to what the tax would be payable. So we kind of wrapped our mind around that, or I got them to think about that. And then we moved on to talk about charities. We started talking about charities that they had come into contact over their lives, and they actually made a list. And there was actually a long list of all of the charities that they thought that they should support. But based on the size of the endowment that they wanted to do, through the Edmonton Community Foundation, we got them to narrow it down to 4. So for my dad, it was the CNIB, because my grandmother went blind later in life, and ALS, because my dad's good friend and cousin, who he'd known his whole life, died of that. For my mom, it was the Faculty of Education at the U of A, again, because she was a teacher and she truly believed in education and university, and Goodwill Industries. We had a family meeting with my siblings, and we explained what was going to happen. There was a little bit of pushback because, again, I don't think people understand. They see money leaving the estate to go to these charities, which they think is less in their pockets. And that's not actually what is going to happen in the estate of my parents. But my parents were very firm that this is what they wanted to do. So while it took a bit of time to convince my dad that while he had worked hard his whole life and that he had never asked for help or a handout from anyone, when he started to look at his life and everything in his life and in the lives of his children and his grandchildren, he recognized finally that there were many organizations that had made a difference in the lives of his family and his children, and that but for the generosity of people who had gone before, those organizations may not have been there. So now that I got to talk about me personally, I'm going to talk about the fun stuff, the tax, the stuff that everybody wants to talk about. And please, I give seminars in estate planning and wills and tax and all of that that are hours long, 2 hours long. I could talk about it for 3 hours. Julian has only given me 15 minutes, and I'm sure he's going to be doing the sign to me pretty quick. But Julian touched on this a bit, but I want to talk about conscious versus unconscious giving. So in Canada, we do not have an estate tax. So you do not get taxed just because you die. In the US, if you are a US citizen living in Canada or you're living in the US, they have an estate tax. You get taxed for dying in the US. And I'm making it simple. There's a whole bunch of, exemptions and all of that. But again, that's for another seminar. So while we don't have an estate tax in Canada, you have to pay capital gains, or you may have to pay tax if you die owning certain assets. Those assets are called capital assets. So if you own a cottage or rental properties, or if you have shares and investments, those capital assets, if they've increased in value, create what's called a capital gain. And then you have to pay a portion of that gain, or report a portion of that gain on your final tax return, and there is tax payable. If you have a registered retirement savings plan, if you have a registered retired income fund, and on the death of the last of the survivor of you or your spouse, or you have no spouse, those funds are included, whatever's left, in your income for the year of your death. And so if you have a $100,000 RSP, a $200,000 RSP, and it goes into your income for the year of your death, you're right at the top tax bracket, and you have to pay that in tax to the government, to Ottawa. So your state pays the tax, it goes to Ottawa, and they get to decide what to do with those funds. That's the unconscious giving. If you give a gift in your will, you receive a charitable donation for the full amount of that gift, and that can offset part or all of the tax payable. So you consciously get to decide how to spend your tax dollars. Like, I know it's a charitable gift, but to me it's still it's a tax in that you're deciding where that money goes. So I wish I could talk more about all of that, and I'm probably running a little bit to the end of my time, and I'm hoping that we have lots of questions, because I have blocked off a lot of time to stay on and answer questions, because I love answering questions. I love addressing what people want to hear. So to kind of finish up, I want to just talk about a couple simple estate planning strategies, and you just have to do it. One, make a will, a power of attorney, and a personal directive, and then update it or review it every 5 years. I can tell story after story about estates where people have outdated wills, and it creates more time and effort, and usually the beneficiaries don't end up being the beneficiaries that they wanted. I can tell you stories about families that have to deal with there being no will. Two, pick a charity or an institution that has a connection to you or a loved one, and give them a gift in your will. It doesn't have to be a big gift, but just do it. The size of the gift does not matter. And finally, the third estate planning strategy I think that you should think about is pick the right hero. Who do you want to be like? Who do you want your kids, your grandkids, your family to be like? And think about what your legacy will be. Because I truly believe that we all have an obligation to think about and give back to our communities. So that's it. I did it, my first web seminar. You can tell me later all my mistakes and all the things I did wrong, okay, Julian?
Juana, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your own personal story in there too. I mean, that exactly goes to kind of what we were saying before, how everyone does what's right for them. they find the causes and the situation with family and all that. So we really appreciate your openness to share your story. I know we may have some questions coming in from the audience. And actually, I'll answer this first one because it does come to me, Wanda.
Sure.
It says, can I direct an estate gift directly to the U of A or only through the community foundation? So absolutely, the university can help you directly. You can, and then we ourselves could also work through yourself and your lawyer or your estate planner to come up with sample will language and making sure everything's directed properly. So you can go through us, and there are other foundations like the Edmonton Community Foundation that do similar causes as well. But we will also be sharing our contact information at the end of this too. So if you have more specific questions, you can go through us. Wanda, I have a question for you. And you kind of touched on this a little bit. So if a client comes to you and they say, yes, this makes sense, I would like to involve a charity in our estate plans, would you recommend should they talk to the charity first? Should they talk to just the lawyer and you talk to the charity? What would you kind of recommend case by case, I guess?
Well, in most cases, when my clients want to leave a gift in their will to a charity, they already have a connection with the charity. It's very important to get the proper legal name of the charity and to talk about how they want to frame the gift, either through a specific amount of money or a residual beneficiary. And so I normally, because I've done so many wills and everything, I kind of know how to frame the gift, but if they're unsure, they could reach out to the charity to get the proper name, or to maybe find out from the charity what their greatest need is. Do you want to give the gift outright so that the charity can spend the money however they want? Do you want to direct that it go specifically to a certain thing? The other thing to address that in talking about that is I always, in my wills, put a clause too, that if the charity changes its name or ceases to exist, that the executor of your estate can still give the intention. And so to a different charity or a similar charity or the successor charity. And so it's really important to get the name right. And I can assist with that. Or like I said, you look on the tax receipt and the charity will tell you what their proper legal name is.
Yes, thank you. And speaking up for our side of things too, we do encourage the charity being contacted to make sure those wishes can be followed properly. It's great that everyone has their causes and intentions, but sometimes there can get confusion in language. People can speak different language on the same thing. So it's great to work in collaboration.
Yes.
A few more questions from the audience. This one says, is law different for estate and will planning in different provinces?
Yes. Every province in Canada has their own estates. We have certain laws that are federal. So the Income Tax Act is federal. So it's all across Canada. Canada Pension, old age is all across Canada. But yes, the laws are different. And so you have to very much know what the laws in your province are in terms of estate. And everybody hears stories from other provinces, but it's very important to know the law in your province and deal with a lawyer in your province.
Thank you. Another audience question. It's referring to when you mentioned the difference between writing a will or a personal directive.
Oh, okay. So again, wills, powers of attorney, personal directives is a whole big seminar in and of itself. So your will, remember, takes effect on your death. Your executor only has power to act after you're dead. Power of attorney is the document that if you are still alive, but you are mentally incapacitated for whatever reason, age, an illness, or an accident, you can, through the power of attorney, appoint someone to look after your financial needs. So that's while you're still alive. Power of attorney ends on your death and your will takes over. Personal directive is the medical kind of side of that. So a complete estate plan involves all three of them. Personal directive is appointing someone to make your medical decisions. And in your power of attorney, even if you're not making your own financial decisions, you can still direct that your attorney can continue to do charitable giving on your behalf.
Thank you. Another audience question. This person's asking, in my will, can I make a gift? If I was to make a gift, would I be making a specific amount or a percentage of my estate?
So there's not a right or wrong answer to that question. It depends on your overall estate size. People that you maybe have a legal or moral obligation to include, like minor children. And so I work with clients to try and find the right fit. So if you do a percentage, if your estate increases in size, the charity would get more. If your estate decreased in size, they would get less. If you do a specific amount, they would always get that specific amount as long as there was enough in your estate. So I kind of go through this with clients, and we want, I try and talk to them about what they want to do with the money, how much. So it depends on a number of things before you can make that decision.
Absolutely.
And I don't think charities mind one way or another whether they get a specific gift or a gift of a percentage of the overall estate size.
Absolutely. It's whatever's right for that person. Absolutely. Another question, if someone has no will, what's the order of how proceeds are distributed to family members? Like, does it go spouse then children, or?
Yeah, so it depends on what there is in your estates. Remember, any joint assets when you die flow to the surviving joint owner of that asset. So in Alberta, if you die leaving a spouse or an adult interdependent partner, which is a common law partner, they get 100% of the estate if you have no children. If you have children and those children are from the marriage or the relationship, again, 100% to the spouse. If you are in a blended family, so it's a second marriage and you have children from a first relationship, there's a split. The first $150,000 goes to your spouse, and then there is a split between the spouse and the children. If you have no spouse, no children, it then goes to your parents. If you have no parents, then it goes to your siblings, and then possibly niece and nephews. So if you are a single person and you haven't done a will, then your estate is going to go to someone potentially that you may not want it to go to. And so that's why it's important. I have an estate right now where first cousins from the mom and dad's side of the family, because this gentleman had done a will, but all of his beneficiaries died before him and he never updated it. And now some first cousins from, Australia and England are inheriting his money, people he's never even met. So it's important to do a will, even if you're single, even if you think you don't have anything, it's important. And then the split between, if you don't have a will, and the split between your family might not be the right split. So everybody's circumstances are slightly different, but it's really important to do the will.
Absolutely. Quick apology. I'm sorry. My dog is snoring. Sorry if you guys are hearing that in the background. I'll try to wake her up.
No, I can't hear him.
So a few more questions. Maybe this one says, what are some digital assets that you may need to consider for estate planning?
Yeah, digital assets are the big one. So this is partly of making sure that you pick the right executor, and your executor, number one, knows how to deal with these types of assets. And it's also part of getting kind of organized and having a list of things. So digital assets could be like points on a gaming system, like my son is buying things, and apparently those accounts can be, if you have Bitcoin is a big thing, if you have some kind of copyright to a website that you've created, if you have online bank accounts, so virtual bank accounts that have no paper, like your executor has to know how to access those, online investment accounts. Lots of people don't, if they buy shares, they don't get paper certificates of their shares anymore. The shares are held on an online account. So again, it's part of making sure that you're organized and you have a list of all of your assets, and that, you don't have to tell your executor every single thing, but you should have it organized at home, that at least you could direct your executor to the list so that, they know that they have to deal with that asset or figure out how to access it online.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it's a new way of, it's just the new world, all of this digital assets and everything. It's always changing. A question, this one looks like it's maybe directed for myself. A few of these stories discussed have designating gifts to specific areas of interest, which is wonderful. How does the U of A ensure that a gift can fulfill the specific cause that it aligns with the U of A's priorities? So again, this is where we welcome collaboration to connect with you, the donor, and your lawyer estate planner. We actually, again, so we want to make sure that your intentions and the priorities and things can be fulfilled. And we always recommend including a little bit of a variance clause. So as we know, we're planning for future priorities, future plans. Who knows how things could change over the course of decades. So a variance clause allows a little bit of flexibility so that should your exact specific wording cannot be used exactly, it can be flexible to the closest possible need. So for instance, if you're supporting a medical research and that medical cause is solved, what's the next closest possible area related to it that could be supported? So I hope that answers that question. And that's so far the end. I'll leave another quick minute to see if there's any other questions coming in. But Wanda, we're so grateful for your time and able to join us today. You've answered a lot of questions that I've had, so thank you, and thank you, Kian, for switching the slides back. So I want to share. Should people not be comfortable asking questions in this format, please feel free to reach out to any of us. You'll see the 3 members of our Plan Giving team here at the U of A, Kathy, Brian, and myself, always happy to help you. And there's Wanda's contact information as well, so please feel free to reach out to her. Again, we are going to be sending out a survey at the end of this seminar that we kindly ask you to fill out. It'll be a huge help for us and allow you the opportunity to ask these questions or follow up on specific information that you may be interested in. We appreciate you spending a part of this morning with us. It's been our absolute pleasure to host you. Enjoy the rest of the virtual Alumni Week experiences. There's a lot of great offerings, so I hope you can take some more things in. And yes, please check out our Alumni Weekend programming page. Katie, thank you for sharing that link on the chat box. And take care, everyone. Thank you very much. Stay safe.
Take care. Thank you.